Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the 90th minute, and welcome to a fantastic interview here. I am Liam, got Brett Waz, and the good friend of the channel, Mr. Brendan Dunlop, is here once again. Welcome back to the channel, Brendan.
What's up, boys? It's nice to see you. Liam, I feel like every time I've been on the chat, you've been working, man. Last few times I've spoken with these guys, I did a whole hour with Brett. Where's Liam? Working.
Yeah, it's been a struggle the past, I'm gonna say, 6 months or so since the Euros have ended, but hopefully now things, as we move into the winter, hopefully now be able to be on the channel a bit more. But
I'm glad you told the boss. You're like, look, Canada's playing. They're in Edmonton. This is the biggest game of my life. I need the week off.
I said, listen, I'm booking days off. This is happening. You're not going to question it. Figure it out. That's what I said. But I mean, you touched on it. I mean, Canada. I mean, that's why Brendan Dunlop is here. His Canadian football knowledge. If you don't know who he is, the Canadian sports scene, the Canadian football scene, was Brendan Dunlop for our childhood, at least.
Yes, absolutely.
And he continues to play such a pivotal role in the North American football scene. And you see he's got his Aston Villa kit on. We will talk about them later on. We will talk about TFC even potentially, some MLS news. We'll get into that. Brett, Team Canada, you are beyond hype.
Oh, I'm so happy.
Beyond hype.
And a buddy of yours, Craig Forrest, tweeted yesterday that he sees Edmonton as not only the home for the Canadian men's national team, but for the Canadian women's national team as well. I thought that was such a, kind of took me back a little bit because it makes me a little bit emotional.
It doesn't get put on the map very often. And when it does, I mean, I think it always seems to do itself proud.
Maybe if you could speak to the importance of just these next two matches not being here in the North. Like this is the North, baby.
Yeah, exactly. This is, a proper Canadian kind of feel, right? On turf, in the cold. The Mexico game forecast makes it seem like the Mexico game is going to be the worst one. Obviously, Costa Rica have a lot of experience playing on turf, but, they didn't have time to acclimatize in Edmonton. The Canadian government seemed to delay their visa application, and they've only been allowed one training session at Commonwealth. So I think they would have preferred to have had a few days to run for coffees in the cold and just kind of settle into the hotel at the Edmonton suites or wherever it is they're staying and get used to the situation. But to go back to Craig's tweet, and we were talking about this on the last Footy Prime podcast as well, he says that those games in Edmonton, it really felt like the whole country was behind you, and as much of the country as possible would be in Commonwealth. And then that was just a feeling they weren't able to replicate in other places. And when they had these big games in Montreal and they had these big games in Toronto, the visiting support was massive because it was accessible. And especially, talk about pre-COVID, they put these games in Montreal against Honduras, a big World Cup qualifying game, and it's 80% blue. And the sponsorship at the time was the blue bank, and they were giving out blue thunder sticks. It looked like they were playing an away game, right? And they never had that feeling in Edmonton. In Edmonton, it was just this love that came out, and it didn't matter what run they were on. It didn't matter, what players were in the team. The support was always there. The turnout was always there. So I think it's brought back a bit of nostalgia, which we all appreciate the older we get. And he's sad that he can't be there to work or to be there in Edmonton to see the game as a fan, but he's very happy that Alphonso Davies and this young crop can have that experience that they love so much when they were playing.
I was going to say there was a lot of doubt that Edmonton was even going to get a World Cup qualifying game. I was always speaking to my friend like, oh, maybe Edmonton's going to get a game. He's like, no, we'll never get a game. They'll never put it here. There's the turf, Commonwealth. There's this issue. There's that issue. And it finally came. They finally decided, hey, let's put it in Edmonton. And now it's proving how much support Edmontonians and the rest of Canada give us.
Well, I think when Edmonton hosted the Women's World Cup all those years ago, the support was actually really, really well. I mean, I went to a handful of matches, and I mean, I think you're always not going to get the numbers for the women's side of the game as you get for the men's. But the numbers were decent. I mean, that first Canada game was a sold out crowd at Commonwealth. The
rounds went
massive.
Rounds went on.
Yeah.
Like, keep breaking.
There was good support for the Women's World Cup, and now that Canada's here, I'm being in the city. The hype is real. I mean, the excitement is real. People are actually getting on board with Canadian football, which is so rare. And I don't think we've ever seen that in our lifetime.
No,
Like we never have.
Just an awesome time, though, right? Liam, I just want to touch on your point. You said that the attendance difference between the men and the women, but in comparing 2015 to now, it's also such a completely different time for women's football too, right?
Yes.
I would love to have seen the celebration tour that the women did at the end of October in Ottawa and in Montreal. Got a good crowd, but it was a kind of a weird time of the year, a few months removed from Tokyo, obviously, which everyone kind of watched remotely at different times in the morning. There was a kind of almost a disconnect with that tournament in comparison to 2012, I think, and 2016, you could say as well. Although obviously people watched it, 4.4 million Canadians consumed that game on CBC, which is incredible. I would have loved to see them do a celebration tour in better circumstances, in better weather, right? And I think if they were able to have done that, so let's say the end of August or early September in Edmonton, I think we'd all be surprised. I think that the turnout would have been massive, and I hope that they get to do that in the near future. And listening to you guys talk about how Edmonton's such a soccer hotbed, I wish that would translate to FC Edmonton in the CPL.
100%. Yeah,
it takes time. It takes time. You got to build brand rep, and I think also too what might be funny with that franchise in the Canadian Premier League is that they were established as a lower division or it's kind of a smaller club, I guess, right? That maybe people treat it as semi-professional. And even though now it's pro and you can see a sellout stadium in Victoria and they're playing in Toronto, they're playing at BMO and all these kind of big venues. Spruce Meadows in Calgary looks amazing. I really want to get there and see Calgary play. But maybe there's this feeling in Edmonton, and you guys would know better than me, that they're still semi-pro, almost amateurish. And hopefully over time and with some success, which they haven't had, maybe that'll turn around.
Yeah, they definitely need to have the on-the-field impact to get the off-the-field impact, I feel. But yeah, it is sad. I mean, I think Edmonton sports is relatively well supported. Different sports, hockey, football,
You're
soccer,
not wrong.
whatever.
Even basketball, the Edmonton Energy, I think.
I mean, you go back.
No, the Stingers.
Stingers.
Stingers,
Oh,
buddy.
Stingers. Jeez, I'm bad.
Yeah, what defunct league are you thinking about?
I don't know, but I know they get support. So,
bro, the Stingers. I know one of the assistant coaches on the team, and he said he loves it. The vibe there is incredible.
Sports is well supported, and you're right. FC Edmonton's that one little asterisk of why do they not get the support? Why do they not sell out their stadium? And I think it is on the field. People, like I said, people don't view them as full professionals. Maybe view them as very Sunday league in a sense, and until that perception changes, which hopefully these Canada matches can help get new football fans and get people going to those stadiums and everything like that. I hope if people can be sold on the atmosphere of a in-person football match, maybe say, hey, let's give FC Edmonton a shot.
I hope so too, man. And it's funny, right? And certain markets it just doesn't catch like that. Like York United are the smallest market team, in the Canadian Premier League. I would say I don't have actual factual proof for that, but just based on attendance, that seems to be the case. Which is also the case for the Toronto Argonauts in the CFL, right? Toronto being the largest city, obviously massive supporters of the Leafs, the Blue Jays, and the Raptors, and it doesn't trickle down to the two football teams. And so I'm interested to see what this new CPL team in Vancouver will be like. Because I think a lot of people were surprised to see it not be Quebec or Saskatchewan, and to see the same ownership group with Pacific involved, like that'll be interesting. It's the same group that owns Pacific FC, so I'm not sure how that's going to work off the start. But at the same time, hey, just having more opportunity in another professional environment for players, in terms of growing the game, that is super positive. So I feel like we can cross that bridge later.
True. And I don't think that's a bad thing, considering Pacific FC have had a pretty good start to the Canadian Premier League. They've built a pretty good reputation. So with that same ownership, maybe that'll be a good thing as well for the league. Yeah,
you've got that corporate head on now that you're working with the nation there. You've got that corporate vision, corporate lens. But I agree with you, man. I think that's how the league must have seen it as well too. That there's a couple of other interested groups that wanted to get in, and some smaller markets too that are really hot and pushing. David Clanigan, he was saying, Julian de Guzman is involved in Barrie. They've just launched the LeagueOne team in Barrie, Ontario, and in Peterborough, Ontario as well. Electric City. They're eager. They would love to grow to that level. So they're doing it in LeagueOne now, and I think that Clanigan could see a proven track record with the ownership group in Pacific, and a great opportunity in Vancouver. So I'm excited.
Actually, something I want to ask you, something that doesn't really get covered a lot in Canada, I guess, is the lower leagues throughout the country. The kind of the Sunday semi-professional leagues. In Ontario, there's quite a good league. I know in Quebec they have a pretty good league. Can you touch upon that at all? Like any of these little leagues?
Yeah, a little bit. So this LeagueOne Ontario, before the Canadian Premier League, a lot of guys who you saw drafted or make a real impact in that 2019 season had been playing in League One Ontario. And basically, and I can't speak to Quebec or Western Canada, my apologies, but basically League One Ontario, a lot of these players are made up of guys who had played in MLS Academy systems and, never made the senior team, maybe played to the end, maybe played to 18, 19, and, didn't get that TFC2 pro contract. And then they still want to kick on and play, or they'd gone to NCAA, maybe an injury or a shortened career, and it was just an opportunity to play at a semi-pro level and get some exposure and attention. So Dylan Carrero was the star and the MVP in that league, I think in 2018 or the season before the CPL started, and one of the top picks for Valor. He's now retired now, so it was another opportunity for guys to have a chance to kick on if they couldn't catch on in Europe, I guess. And now with the CPL, you've got a bigger spotlight and a better situation for these guys to develop.
Well, somebody who did catch on kind of out of nowhere and is now on this national team is Jonathan David, who didn't play MLS, didn't play, well, CPL wasn't a thing, but he played for, it wasn't like a youth team of his, was it? I don't remember exactly what type of program it was for him, but it was just a team in
You just broke up at the end there. Did you say in Austria?
In Austria, no, sorry, in Ottawa.
Oh, sorry, yeah, that was my understanding. I'm like, oh, did I miss a blip on his resume? Austria, oh, okay.
Couple months, Austria.
Austria, Belgium, I guess that's how he ended up there. Actually, we didn't speak specifically to the academy, but we had John Herdman on Footy Prime this week, and it was amazing 40 minutes with him. He was so candid. We spoke about a lot of things that I've heard him talk about before, transitioning, from the women's job to the men's job, the women winning the gold, what that was like. And all of these things we spoke about, he spoke about in completely different ways and said things I'd never heard before. So that wasn't so much to be a plug about that as much to say that we did speak about Jonathan David.
I watched the interview. It was a fantastic interview.
Thank you, bro.
Really
yeah, he was great. He's such a great speaker. We're so lucky to have him in this country, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
The impact that he's had on the women's program, there was a lot of that nostalgia and feeling of like this was a long project when the women won gold, that this wasn't just one tournament, and he had a lot to do with that in building an infrastructure and a program that could get to that point. So it was incredible to see the women win that. But back to the Jonathan David point, he was just talking about how they ranked the players when they first came in, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 players based on where they played. And at the time, Jonathan David wasn't starring at Genk, and he referred to him as a tier 1 academy player, that he was in a tier 1 academy. So to put him in a level that, Canada has had the players, and this is the thing he justified in the interview. He said when they looked at it all, Canada has always had the players, but just never got over the line. They were top 5 in CONCACAF, for much of the last 2 decades, and they looked at the last 5 World Cup qualifying cycles to really dissect, like, why didn't this happen? And it's not on the players. There's a lot of other factors to it. So I thought that was really exciting and interesting to hear him break it down like that.
Bring up Herdman because I was listening to ESPN FC, and they were talking about the Mexico-US matchup coming up in Cincinnati.
Yes.
They're going. They have to. Speaking of the, in regards to the American team, they have to employ the Herdman, the tactics, the Canada tactics. And I was doing homework at the time, and I kind of sat back and went,
when did the Americans talk about Canada?
They're putting us on a pedestal. Ooh,
use them as a verb. Do they have to play the Herdman?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a valid point, because the play style that he has put into this team Canada is not only exciting and good football, but it's actually the perfect football for the players he has at his disposal. Mm-hmm. I mean, he has a young, quick, attacking side, and he's attacking. He's going forward. He's pushing. He's not going to sit back and try to soak up 90 minutes of pressure. That's not what that team is there to do. They're going to score goals. They're going to make chances. They're going to press. That's what the style they should be doing. And it looks clean and simple on paper of why this not been tactics for years now. But like you said, the reason that Canada has not qualified, or at least challenged for qualification, maybe not down to the players, but it's everything around the players. Coaching, it's the setup, it's the academies, it's infrastructure of Team Canada was not the right infrastructure. Today, it looks like they're on the right path to maybe not qualification, but at least putting their name in the hat for it.
Last name drop. We had Jonathan Osorio on Footy Prime this week as well, and he had said the same thing, that the difference between his early days with the Canadian program and now, night and day, absolutely night and day. That the professionalization of the international program that has happened under John Herdman has
Yeah.
really elevated to this level where you can integrate these star players and attract and pull in or rapidly integrate, players who are doing it and kicking on and hadn't been involved in the program, like Ike Ugbo, who was playing in the Europa League. He got on against West Ham for Genk. It's Genk, right? I feel like I have to, it's a memory trick. I got to associate the player with Ghent
I do
or
that too.
Genk
I literally
Yeah, I
did
know.
that like 2
because I'm
days
gonna
ago on
flip it
stream.
up, right? And like one should be like yellow or red, and one should be blue. They should not both be allowed to have blue.
Yeah.
Who came up with that, right? I can just imagine there's a bunch of Belgians sitting around with wonderful, expensive beer with fruity flavors in it, and they're just like, "Hey, people confuse the two. What a bunch of idiots internationally.
Yeah.
They're so different."
I feel the exact same way. I did that on stream, and people were like, "It's Genk, it's Ghent. They're two different things." I'm like, "I had it this morning, I swear."
See, this is the beauty, man, of like we've been doing the podcast without the live commenting, so we're removed from the immediate corrections, and then someone will Google it and be like, "No, you said this, you idiot," a few minutes later, and take us off the rails. But
Yeah, it's something else when as soon as they go out.
I mean, to just plain simple, easy question for you. Canada's 2 matches at Commonwealth Stadium.
yeah.
How many points do they get out of those 2 games?
You did ask me this off the start. I'm sorry I didn't answer that. I think it's possible that they could come away with 6, which is wild. It's wild. I think 4 would be fantastic, and 4 is probably more realistic, right? I mean, what I like about this 2-game setup, and I like that in this window they're only playing 2 games instead of 3. They have a bit more time to work with each other. It is 2 more full training sessions or 2 full more days in kind of their camp to just try things, which I think is great.
Sorry, Brendan. I was going to bring up something. I was looking at the weather for coming up here for Canada against Mexico. On Monday in Edmonton, there is a 70% chance of snow, 60% chance of snow on Tuesday. There will be snow.
Gets
There
in.
will be snow.
So does that mean it'll be warmer then? Because when I would look at the forecast last night, I think it was -9 they were projecting, but it wouldn't snow if it was that
tomorrow,
cold. No?
It's going to be like +5, -4 with the wind chill. So Tuesday will be chilly. It's going to be chilly.
Yeah, that Mexico game is definitely going to be the weather test, which you never know. That might play into the Canadians' hands versus Mexico. It might just derail the football they want to play. I mean, will Canada be able to press and play attacking football when there's snow on the ground? I don't know. I mean, it's a question mark for both nations. I mean, just because you're born in Canada doesn't mean your football is going to do well on a frozen plastic turf.
Question for you. Do you still have that ghost pepper sauce? Because we might need it. We might need it to warm up a bit. So
I saw that clip. Did it give you the full body warming sensation?
I felt that for 2 days. I gotta be honest with you. My stomach was like on fire for 2 days.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
But to go back to Canada, I was going to ask you, Brendan, Jonathan David. We've seen him have success in LeagueOne with Lille recently. How can Canada get the most of him right now? Because it seems like he hasn't brought that to the international level right now.
Yeah, in this window, he definitely, in this qualifying cycle here in the Oct, he definitely hasn't played to his level. I think he's left quite a few fans a little disappointed. And in that last game against Panama, you can see he was almost a bit snake bitten, right? It seems like maybe lack of confidence or in his own head. But the team's definitely around him. We know that the quality and the ability is there. And you look at him at Lille, actually, and I think that it's interesting, the parallel that if you look at this octagon as a brand new cycle for Canada, because he performed in the lead up to this. He scored boatloads, and I can't remember, it's Suriname, or he was on the score sheet in that lead up to this octagon final stage. But when he first went to Lille, he didn't score for 10 games. And he still kept getting on the team sheet, and he still was getting chances. He was playing at least an hour. And I had thought, come probably this time of the year, November, maybe he just finally started to score. I thought, you know what, he might go out on loan in January. Like maybe it was a move too big, a move too soon. And he ends up being the second leading scorer. He's the leading scorer in Ligue 1 now. I think it just takes a minute, and obviously international football is totally different because you have these interruptions, you do have different pieces changing. Having Laren back, having Atiba back, just as far as the camp goes, I think that normalizes the situation a little bit, and I think this should be a different camp for Jonathan David. I think we'll see more like himself because he's playing at that level for club, And for country now, it resembles more of the complete package, unlike this last window.
We've talked a little bit about Jonathan David, and Alphonso Davies is the obvious one that everyone is talking about. But
he's so good, man. God, I love him. Right? Like, aren't you just so happy he's Canadian?
I watched him play for Vancouver. He played. It was one of the final matches for Vancouver, and he was very fun to watch, very exciting. But I think the player he is today is completely. I mean, I watched him there, and I never would have said that man's going to go to Bayern Munich and become arguably the best left back in the world. He was great. He was pacey. He was exciting, but he wasn't the next great kind of thing. I'm now going to go see him tomorrow, less than 24 hours. A player that realistically is in that conversation for best in the world in his, which is shocking to me, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's wild. It's wild. I didn't want to derail you there, Brett. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, we'll get more on Phonzy, I'm sure, but I want to talk about Tajon Buchanan.
That's what I was thinking about right now.
The last Revolution game, they played. I said LAFC last time. I was wrong. It was Inter Miami. That's who they played. They played Inter Miami. And the way that he influenced matches, not only by just being in the right position and playing good football, but he got under people's skin. He was all over the place. He's tracking defensively. He just makes great plays and makes a great influence on the game that I don't think a lot of people really expect, and a lot of people really don't. Totally.
Yeah, well, it's almost hard to quantify because you don't see it that often, right? Like a winger, an attacking player, very few are able to be as involved defensively and track, across the pitch the way Phonzy and Tajon can do. And if that's the new standard now, it's almost as if has Tajon adapted his game to model Phonzy a little bit, because especially when Phonzy plays for the national team, whether he's actually starting as forward or starting at left back, he's going to be heavily involved in the other side, more so than most people. And I would describe Tajon that the same. There's another stats thing, man. I would love to see the miles these guys are running. Show me the GPS of that. That should be mandatory. You don't have to. It doesn't have to be for everybody, but can we find some type? Put it on like behind a paywall. I would love to see what those miles are for just a few guys. I think we can CSA work something out here to make that available for us. You look at Tajon though, man, as you say, like being involved in this national program and now being such like a key piece and a key weapon. Time has been totally turned on its head with the pandemic, right? Sometimes March 2020 feels like a couple of months ago. Sometimes it feels like 10 years ago. Tajon wasn't even involved in the qualifying campaign, right? He was on the Olympic qualifying team, and he wasn't in whatever that cycle was when the men's senior team was playing. He was with the Olympic team, and now he's like first on the team sheet with the men's team, just in this pandemic stretch. And with all the other weapons and all the other talent we have, like, man, it's super exciting. So let's go back to Belgium because he'll be at Bruges next season. Those fans have got a special player, and the Revolution, witnessed a special player and may win MLS Cup with him, man. I think it's amazing that worked out for both player and club, that he's able to stick around for the rest of this MLS Cup run. And I wouldn't bet against them right now, man, because of him.
I think that's an exciting move for him to move. I mean, it's actually an established club, a good track history of young talent. I think that's a club that he can really push on. In 5 years or so, we might be looking at Tajon Buchanan at top of football's leagues kind of thing. Never know. I mean, I think that's a really good, perfect move for him right now in his career.
I do too, man. I think it's great too. It shows awareness of guys like him and Jonathan David to pick those situations, because both of them had been presented with loads. They had lots to choose from, much bigger clubs. Don't know specifically, but there was Premier League clubs kicking around for both of them. And they chose situations where they thought they could develop best and suit in best. It's not to say stepping stone, but obviously that's how they're looking at things. How do I continue to progress? And both, I think, have chosen situations that seem to be ideal for that, for developing and getting better.
Now, I think a player. Sorry, Brad, go ahead.
No.
I was going to say there's a player on Canada's team that I think deserves a lot of praise. He's been very under the radar, I find, is Stekio. I don't know how you fully pronounce that, but I love watching him. Yeah, you got it. I don't know. He does everything you want out of a midfielder. I mean, he has a Portuguese background, doesn't he?
Yeah, he is Portuguese. So he was actually, he could have been involved in the Portuguese program, and I believe he was at youth level. Actually,
Yeah.
if you got his page up, he's from Leamington, Ontario, which is the southernmost point in this country,
Mhm.
which is not too far away from where I grew up in Windsor. But he went to Portugal, went back to Portugal. I believe he's born in Leamington and went back to Portugal the age 9 or 10, and has played, in a professional setup since he was a boy. So he's at Passos de Ferreira, and Steven Eustáquio is the anglicized version of his name. But he's such a great player, like, and such a fun player to watch. Like, I'm with you there. Just watching his evolution too in the system. A couple of years ago, I saw him do an event with Christian Jack when he'd first committed. So this was been end of 2018, I think, and thought, oh, okay, like exciting, like he might kick on, but like, we'll see. And now it's like also the Tajon effect. Like this guy's got to be in the team, and you're getting like.
Mhm.
You're getting a real fight, and for a man who's not particularly large in size, man, is he a massive player on the field. You know?
Workhorse.
Facilitates too. Like he kind of like you mentioned Buchanan in that way, but just he facilitates from back there and
Yeah.
just forces balls and just things that you don't really expect. And he's another one of those underrated talents that I think can really grow in the next 5
Underrated
years.
young talent.
Yeah,
which I
yeah.
think is the
Yeah.
most exciting part is this is such a young team, and this is really the first major trophy or major competition that they're really challenging for. Canada is going to be hosting this World Cup in 4 more years. What is this starting 11 going to look like? What's the depth going to look like? Really, Canada could be going into that World Cup with an actual squad of world-class players. I mean, they're littered around right now.
Yeah, man, with a few players that are on a fifth pro, best 11 at the end of a season, right? That's wild. I've said it often that this summer there was, I think, 6 men's champions and at least 4 women's champions in this past season. And it wasn't that long ago, man. We as Canadian fans used to just be excited to have players in leagues like Turkey and France
Yeah.
and Germany, right? And now, like, they're winning these leagues, and on the women's side too, like that is amazing. So yeah, man, I'm very excited about 2026. There are a few players, obviously, that won't be involved in that have been, legends. And we talk about, trailblazers and carrying the flag like Atiba Hutchinson. Like, I really want them
Mhm.
to make Qatar in general. But
Mhm.
qualifying for Qatar is like doing it for Atiba,
Exactly.
And I think that, while no one's particularly said this in the squad, I know the respect level is there and the appreciation for all that Atiba has done. And he talk about underrated or underappreciated. This is a guy that does not get the love in this country that he deserves. Having
Oh,
captained the
100%.
Champions League, having played in one domestic titles in Europe, playing in 2 big leagues in Denmark and in Turkey his entire career, and most people don't even know who he is. And he's
Mhm.
doing it like Brady and LeBron and Ronaldo into his late 30s, and he
Yep.
looks better and fitter than ever. Right?
100%.
Well, that was kind of where I wanted to go to. You mentioned Atiba. We do have contrast to the younger players. We do have a little bit of uh, experience, and
Yeah.
you talked to Jonathan Osorio recently.
He's
You
a veteran
mentioned
now. It's
yeah,
wild.
yeah, and I remember him with his curled up hair, gelled up hair, cutting through the midfield, and I'm like, this kid's cool.
Yeah.
This kid's cool and play, like.
He's got good vibes too. He does.
Yeah, and but we do have that experience there as well to kind of contrast that youthful exuberance almost.
Yeah, totally. I think that, I hope Osorio is able to be involved in 2026. He's committed a lot to the program, done a lot for the club level, and has had big success at country level too. I'm really glad that he was able to score at the Azteca again. It's kind of like his thing. So yeah, man, 2026. There's be a lot of that core that we're raving about now being young. They are going to be even better, which is
Yeah,
scary if
it's-
you're other CONCACAF nations, right?
No, also, I always keep hearing about this, like these young Canadian talents and smaller leagues coming through, and it seems like we always have a young super talent coming on out like every year, almost like France, but not to the extent. But it's just nice to know that Canada has talent coming through all the time.
Isn't it great to be on that cycle, man?
Oh yeah,
Like everything is cyclical, right? And you look at golden generations, everyone has it, right? Especially in CONCACAF. Jamaica had theirs, and Trinidad,
Mhm.
Honduras had theirs. There's another country I'm thinking of. I guess you can say Panama. This is the last qualification, kind of that. But Canada, I think in if they qualify for 2022, and then with hosting the World Cup, I think they will establish themselves as an expected group to qualify and not be considered like that. Well, you know, it's a rotating spot of golden generations, that last qualifying spot. That's exciting.
Yeah, truly. All right, let's gush about Phonzy now.
Sure.
Let's
Well, I think I cut Waz off. Waz was going to say something.
Oh, sorry.
No,
Waz.
we're good. We're good. No,
I'm
we're
too
fine.
excited
Let's
about
gush
Phonzy.
about Phonzy.
I have
he's
to
he's getting real excited here.
Yeah.
Oh my
You're
goodness.
taking your hoodie off.
Oh, well, he's got something for it. Oh, he's got.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
Let's be honest here. Alphonso Davies, what he's done for the Canadian football culture has been the biggest impact I think a Canadian. I don't think there's ever been an impact on Canadian sports, Canadian football. Let's not go too far ahead of ourselves, but Canadian football more than Phonzy has. I mean, he's completely just got the attention of a nation and really excited young players and fans of the game to just actually watch, to tune in, to follow, to listen. It's
that goal that he scored against Panama in itself, it not only unbelievable for the scope of Canada, but if you were to put that in the Champions League, Bundesliga, in the Premier League, anywhere in the world, that is a top highlight. It's insane. And he's from Edmonton. Edmontonian, proud Edmontonian.
It's weird. It is weird. I'll be honest. I saw a picture of him yesterday holding the Champions League trophy with the Canadian flag around it. I was like, yeah, that happened. You know, that did happen. That kid that used to play on the field that me and Waz played on last night.
The Edmonton Strikers.
He was there, you know. It's just it's weird. It's weird to think about.
It's exciting, man. I mean, when in that final, I watched it with James Sharman, and we were working at One Soccer that day, and I felt like I was watching a family member play. Like I had those nerves, like which I never have. Like nerves that I've rarely had watching Villa play, or maybe Portugal, I would say, but I didn't expect that. And I watched the whole game. Every time, you know, he was there and he got that early yellow, I felt like I was biting my nails. I couldn't sit comfortably after that. And to see him, you know, win and to bust out the Canadian flag right away and say in his interview post match, like, "Hey man, I'm just a kid from Edmonton." Like I love that. So I really hope that he's able to have a great, you know, run here in Edmonton in these two games on the pitch, but that he's also able to like soak it in and really like live in the moment. And he strikes me as the type of player that in person that can do that. And is, you know, very humble, feet on the ground.
His quote he had in the meeting that they had when Team Canada asked his players, which of these games can we win? He stood up and said, well, we're going to win all of them. Like, no, not a second of doubt. It was, no, we're not here just to be a number. We're not here just to take part. We're here to win. We're here to give them one hell of a game. And I think for such a young player, the confidence and the leadership abilities he has for the starting 11, for the whole squad, is arguably his biggest asset.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, when you play for Bayern Munich, you need that mentality as well. And he's bringing that to the Canadian national team.
Of course, they're benefiting from that. The national program is benefiting from that hugely. You know, you see such an elevation. The last training session that I saw would have been 2019, I guess. They played the States in that Nations League duo. So I saw them in Toronto, I saw them in Orlando, and I'd seen them previously over the years. And media was only allowed a very small bit of training, and oftentimes nothing's really happening, and that's on purpose. They don't really want to let you see kind of what they're working on or, you know, plot any schemes. And so I'm looking at head tennis, I'm looking at sprints, and you could just from that alone in the 15, 20 minutes that I was allowed to see, what an evolution in intensity or in quality that just, you know, it wasn't a kickabout anymore. I remember asking, like, oh, is this the 20 minutes we're allowed to be here? Like, they're giving it. Like, they're clearly in it. And it's this evolution that's happened because this is now the standard that Phonzy expects because of, you know, that's what he lives each and every day. And Jonathan David and, you know, Atiba and other players that have been able to bring that to the team, that those training sessions now are not just a kickabout and hanging out with your friends and hoping to, you know, contend and hoping for a good game. They expect to win these games. They went to Azteca and were disappointed with a draw. Yeah. How effing amazing is that? You know what I mean?
And think about us gushing. We're adults.
Yeah.
Think about the kids who are going to be seeing what he's done and go out onto the field afterwards out at school and just go, I'm going to Davies and do this and do that. The growth of that, like, could you imagine we had that when we were playing in
We had
elementary?
Wayne Rooney,
Yeah.
not,
Yeah.
some bald Shrek man living in Manchester. That was the kid from down the road kind of thing.
Yeah.
It is. It's a hell of a change of the footballing culture that we are seeing in front of our eyes, kind of thing.
It's awesome, man. I think about that a lot too, like the impact, that it has. And I was long before you guys were born. The World Cup was in America in '94, and I was a child. That was my first like kind of intro to big time soccer. I think I might have already been playing it, Timbits or whatever that age 5 is, but it was there wasn't a lot of soccer on TV at that time, right? And I grew up in Windsor, which was basically suburban Detroit, and so it was like a local World Cup. And it was the biggest thing around, man. Everybody was going. Oh, there was games and access like everywhere to things, and it had such a big impact on soccer in America, and you can see that, and the evolution that is American soccer now, and it has its own kind of distinct identity that we're still building in Canada, and a World Cup will accelerate that and cement that. And we all thought hosting it would do it, but it's the buildup into hosting it that I think matters even more.
I think in Southern Ontario, you have a bit of the, you have those immigrants from Portugal, from Italy, from European nations that all live in Southern Ontario. And the footballing culture is there, just not there for Canada. People will support the nations that their families have come from. Now we're seeing people are growing up as Canadian support and really pushing that they are Canada fans. And that's a change I don't think we have yet seen in our football.
Timing and access thing, man. Like I talk about the States, that was my access to international soccer because Canada wasn't on TV. Canada wasn't playing those level of qualifying matches, but I could see every U.S. national team game on ABC on the weekends. And those players, Eddie Pope and Kobe Jones, I guess Lawless would have been kind of the tail end of that time, but Tony Miola, those guys were massive. Those guys were key soccer figures, giants, right? For anyone that played soccer with me or anyone that was into soccer. And it's like, it's funny to say that my access or intro into international soccer was the U.S. team because Portugal was irrelevant. Portugal weren't in tournaments. Portugal weren't qualifying. I didn't have that until Euro 2000. So I think for a lot of Canadians who would have loved that experience first, the timing and access wasn't there for that. So now that's changing. Now these games are accessible, whether it's OTT on One Soccer, whether, for this qualifying cycle, you can see them on Sportsnet. I really hope in the future that it's nationally accessible. I think it will for the World Cup. I think it will be on CTV. They'll put all those Canada games accessible on CTV. That's how you grow and get people into it. And you're right that you can still, have an intro to the game or a love for your heritage, but now we can share a great thing in Canada. And it's really cool to see people realize that and get in on this now.
I used to work at a jersey store.
Okay.
I'm not going to name drop them, but it may be a certain town in New Jersey. Anyways, but I was in there the other day, and one of my old assistant managers goes, "If I have one more person coming in there, because they don't have soccer jerseys in this store that I'm not going to name. They go, if one more person comes in and asks for an Alphonso Davies jersey, I just don't know because today I've had 13 and it wasn't even noon yet."
Yeah.
And it was like, wow.
I know, a guy I work with, he had to pay damn near double to get a Canada Alphonso Davies jersey to get it shipped in time for that first game because demand was so high. He went to the store and said, "I'll pay whatever you want. Put one on hold for me as soon as you get it in." And he got it for like I said, double the price.
Wow.
He was okay with
See,
paying.
I'm gonna be a little different. I'm gonna be wearing my Team Canada hockey jersey to the game. I'm gonna be that guy.
Yeah, you're gonna be that guy. Yeah.
Hey, man.
Good for you, buddy. Ooh.
But hey, you know what? I like that, man. That's cool. And I saw that in Toronto. I posted that on the Footy Prime account actually when I was walking in for, I think it was the Panama game. And as I was entering like the gate, 2 guys in front of me, they looked like hockey bros. They looked like dudes that they'd spent the last few months at the cottage. Like, "Oh yeah, did you watch that Gold Cup, bro? We were streaming it at the lake, buddy. It was great." They looked like those dudes. They were wearing slides and these hockey jerseys. And I was like, this is great.
Yeah.
Whether, and I shouldn't judge them based on their appearance. I did hear them speak and they did talk like that. Real cottage bros. But, I shouldn't assume that they're new soccer fans or whatever. But I just love that everyone is on board, that this is a Canadian thing now.
Yeah.
Sorry, Liam, did you say that's an Alberta voice?
That's Berta boys right there.
Yeah,
you call
you
it
said
cottage. Your
cottage.
cottage life. We are not that at all here. Now, if anyone else has anything they want to talk about Canada a bit more, we definitely can. But I do want to get on to the Premier League and Aston Villa because it's been an incredible, I'm going to say 16 months for you as a Villa supporter, from the eyes of last season, Jack Grealish, to Jack Grealish leaving, and now today you have a new manager today. Are you excited?
Yeah, I am excited, man. I think that Steven Gerard was always going to get a chance in the Premier League before he was as gray as I am. That you guys quickly pointed out, the grays on the side of my head.
That was you. That was all you.
I said Silver Fox.
It was complimentary. Yes, it was complimentary. Yeah. As much as I'm trying to look like Sergio Ramos with the pullback, the grays are still visible. Yeah, you're right. I think that it's we all expect Steven Gerrard to get that Liverpool job, and he will. But I think it's great that he's been able to have success in Scotland. Sorry, Liam. But at a big club with a lot of pressure and expectation. And he's coming to a team in the Premier League that also has that. Not the expectation to beat their most hated rival, because Villa's so much better than Birmingham, and they're not contending for a title together. But Villa are a big club. And I think it's great for him to have this experience in perhaps one day being the Liverpool manager, but also for Villa to have a connection with these players that older managers just didn't. And I think, this is not a slate of Dean Smith at all, because I think he really did connect with that room and elevated the games and the quality of a lot of players. And you look at how heartbroken the fan base is to see Dean Smith go. And it's not because they lost 5 in a row. It's the way in which they lost 5 in a row. But there's factors to that. Jack Grealish leaving, the players that they've brought in, spent a lot of money to bring in, and who have quality, Buendia and Leon Bailey, they haven't been able to play on the pitch. They're trying to integrate 2, coveted strikers in Ollie Watkins and Danny Ings, and maybe that system of having 2 number 9s up top, that just doesn't work anymore. And so I'm excited to see what Steven Gerrard will bring in the room to a group that will look at him differently than some of these older guys that have been in that seat before. And I think you see that a lot, that bounce with these younger managers, that there's an immediate player-manager connection that didn't exist with an older generation of more established guys. So I think it's a good situation for Steven Gerrard. It's a bit of a risk for Villa, but it's the right time to take said risk, because the benefit and the upside, if he can be there for 4 seasons, like now you would expect they're kicking on and challenging for Europe. And at the end of that tenure, expecting to be in a European place, right?
Taking my bias out of it. He has done a great job in Scotland. He has done a fantastic job to revitalize that squad. The team he took over was aging. It was poor. It was money. There was no money in Rangers. And he did well to change the team, get the players in that he needs. Got a lot of young talent at that Rangers team. And I'm sure 1 or 2 of them will make their way to Villa. I mean, Ryan Kent at Villa could be happening in the near future if I'm honest. But no, I think he's done a great job in Scotland. I think you are getting a good manager. Just, is it too soon in his managerial career? I'm not too sure about that. We'll wait and see. The Villa job, like I said, is a big job, and I think there's a lot of pressure on it right now that team finishes preferably in top 10 this season. That you spent money. Is he the guy to turn this around? I'm gonna say yes. I'm gonna say he can turn around Villa. He can be there for like 3 or 4 seasons. Jurgen Klopp goes. He goes to Liverpool. Boom, boom, done deal, kind of thing.
Well,
it's written in the stars.
You mentioned Leon Bailey, and I think
had moments.
Well, the influence that he has when he is healthy is phenomenal. Like he really is a really good player. He's one of my favorite players when he is healthy.
Is he a luxury player though?
Yeah.
Because I said moments too, right? Like I love what I think was is probably the first one I heard say that. Moments FC. You described United as Moments FC.
Oh yeah, they are. Yeah,
right.
Definitely.
And it's like that to me though. I said this, and so I forget who I said it to, and they're like, "What?" And I realized I'm like, "Oh, I think I took that from Waz. That's a Waz thing." And he's just like a moments guy. And I would love to be proven wrong. I think at Leverkusen he did have a track record for being, a bit more consistent. Obviously he's had the injuries, so I really hope so. But I found myself scapegoating him in the last game, where I was just a couple of poor decisions and lost balls, and I was just like, I was getting really mad specifically at him. But it's there's a lot of circumstances into why it hasn't started so well for Villa, but they are 11 games into the season, and a top 10 finish is absolutely within reach, as is relegation, which they're afraid of. So it's about, getting it right. I think coming in now, with a bit of time to kind of settle in, some players that Gerard can work with, on day one, just get familiar with the grounds. And by the time the whole team returns, he will be comfortable kind of in that space. So it's a good time for Gerard to settle in.
Craig Forrest is not here. I was going to bring it up. West Ham's season is honestly it shouts Leicester 2015 to me.
Really?
I have that Leicester vibe with West Ham right now. Not the prettiest of players, but just getting the job done. There's excitement around the ground. Mikel Antonio is an absolute god.
David Moyes is a great manager.
David Moyes at United right now will be doing magic. You guys sacked him way too early. You didn't give him the time. Listen,
we want to talk about scapegoats.
But no, I West Ham. The stories of West Ham and Villa are so contradicting at the moment, because Villa had the hype going into the season. West Ham, I think people thought they were going to have a bit more of a down year, maybe finish on that 10th spot, and it's just been complete opposite. And West Ham are pushing now top 4, which is wild.
Yeah.
It's West Ham, and then Villa are not relegation candidates in my mind. They are down there right now. They're struggling with the form. 5 losses in a row. They're struggling to score the goals required. I when they signed Danny Ings, I thought that's a great signing. Proven Premier League goal scorer. Hasn't worked out yet, Maybe it is tactics. Maybe it is managerial. We'll see what Gerard can do with that squad.
The West Ham story is incredible, though. I don't know if it's quite the Leicester feel. I mean, I don't know that they're going to be kicking on into March in the title conversation. But if they're kicking on at Christmas in the top 4 conversation, like how amazing is that? To be 3rd in the Premier League at this international break in the middle of November.
Yeah,
that's unbelievable. West Ham fans would have, if you told them like your season ticket just went up 3 times, they would send it over Venmo, PayPal immediately, right? They'd be all over that e-transfer, right? Just take my money. This team is amazing. This team is incredible. And you look at how they're fighting, and what they're experiencing. That is very much where Aston Villa want to be, and expect to be. And maybe wrongfully for how things have gone the last few years, but as a big club that was close to kicking on 10 years ago, 12 years ago with Martin O'Neill there and chasing that Champions League spot, or at least Europe. That's where West Ham's at.
West Ham story. I like that. That's the title of the docu-series.
No, I mean, the Premier League, I think, has been so exciting so far this season. There's so many different storylines. Listen, United's storyline that can take 4 hours to break down. You look at Arsenal, that story. Brendan Rodgers at Leicester right now, that story. Newcastle.
United's next
Newcastle.
There's so many different storylines. I think
the Newcastle story is wild, man.
Newcastle.
And who knows, what January is going to be like. That's I think going to be our first sign of like how wild is it?
Yeah. Could you imagine if they got relegated and them in the championship with that money?
But they have to spend so big in January to survive relegation. But the thing is it just an absolute band-aid solution just to go and throw cash around? But it could work. You never know. It's a team of superstars. See what happens. Toss them out there. We've seen that before in the Premier League. It hasn't worked out. We throw back to QPR a handful of years ago. But no, I mean...
My brother's a QPR fan, actually. It was before they got promoted to the Premier League. So we're big F1 guys. We grew up watching Saturday morning qualifying sessions instead of Saturday morning cartoons. And when Bernie Ecclestone and Flavio Briatore bought the team, he was intrigued by that. And we went on holiday, one of his first holidays at drinking age. The owner of this bar in southern Portugal was a diehard QPR fan. He had the tattoos, the club tattoos. They just got a new crest, and he got a new one. So both forearms were covered. And my brother just thought, okay, I feel like this should be my team. And then they had some success and got promoted. So yeah, we've got I'm a villain. My dad is a Plastic City fan, and my brother's QPR.
Well, it can't be. At least City's getting some wins. I can.
Actually, I was gonna bring one thing about United. I don't want to delve too much into it because it's a whole, it's
painful.
But
It's
yeah,
painful.
Kevin De Bruyne, apparently he was on a podcast and he said this about the United game. The day before a game, we usually train tactically based on how the opponent play. Before United, Pep Guardiola said, "We don't know how they're gonna play. We shall see." And we stopped training after 10 minutes.
It's amazing, but it's so evident, right? Like no one knows how they're going to play. And I don't know if you guys saw the halftime show on the DAZN feed, the Premier League production show was Scholes, Owen Hargreaves, and Michael Owen, and they had all said some variation of like, no one knows how they're going to play.
No.
They don't know how they're going to play, and this is a problem when you've been in the same job for 3 seasons, that you're always chopping and changing and panicking.
It's like a lot of people ask me, like, are you all in or no, when they ask me, do you think United's going to win this game? I don't know. I don't know how they're going to play.
Depends what team comes out.
That fear factor is gone, right? That fear factor
definitely.
of playing against them. I think on paper, you look at it every time and think, well, yeah, they should beat Young Boys. Yeah, they should, beat Atalanta or be in this game for the majority of the match.
They had that honeymoon period at the start of the season where, Ronaldo comes in and they smash Newcastle. They smash Leeds. Like, oh, things are great. And then it starts to derail itself.
And then Ronaldo's the only one scoring. And you're like, whoa.
Yeah, and David De Gea is the only one making saves in the back line.
Well, I was pretty sure it was you after that Leeds game going, yep, title's done. We've won the league. I was like, we're 14 minutes into this season. Can we relax? But does anyone else have anything they want to talk about before we wrap this up?
No.
Disappointed that Craig Forrest wasn't here because I was going to try and recruit him for a Sunday league team. Because
I've been trying to recruit him and I haven't been able to, buddy.
Liam's our keeper right now, and it's not going well. Last night we lost 9-1.
No.
Let me be honest. I have the most goals against in the league, but I also probably have the most saves in the league. I'm getting tested every 2 seconds. Let me tell you, it's a hard job.
Because who's on your back line?
Was.
Greg. Oh, was. Is it Was and Greg?
And so well, hey, I was only -1 last night. Okay, my analytics were good
because you get tired after it.
I do quick shifts. And the other boys just take their time on the pitch. I'm like, okay. So
how big is the roster? What is your roster composition here? It's you 6.
No, Brett's not in there, and either is Matt. They're not playing.
Brett's got to work Wednesday night.
I was the one that was editing the the videos that's coming out afterwards.
On the channel at this point.
I'm with you, brother. I know that feeling, man. I've been in that spot a lot.
We had a stinker the other night. We had 2 guys sent off.
Oh, wild. That always happens when I have like a threshold of Italians in my team. Like I'm always mistaken for being Italian, but there are some.
Well, it's a minute left in the game.
Italians in my team.
It was a minute left in the game, and I don't know what happened. Our guy flipped off the other guy, and the ref sent him off.
Oh wow. Down 9-1.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Shocker.
And now you've lost him for the next match. He's suspended.
And we have another guy suspended too because he got sent off earlier in the game. It was a mess.
You're gonna get an email from league admin like, "Can you please explain what happened? You violated the code of conduct. And the referee sent you off." I hate those emails.
But this conversation was fantastic. We appreciate your time, Brennan. If you did enjoy this, leave a like and subscribe. Thank you for joining the 90th minute today, and we will see you next time.
Goodbye.